What would happen if viewers on, let's say, any given day after supper, as we used to do in the 50s, go sit in front of the television set, by some fluke in the time-space continuum, turned on their television set and there was Jerry Springer.
Uh-huh.
What does this tell you about, having been in the media, tell you about society, the type of viewer that television is now drawing when shows like Jerry Springer, Maury Povich, and the rest are just crap, in my opinion?
I think you're absolutely right. That's the key point. It's not only television that has gone, keeps going down this slippery slope to I mean, it seems often that every decade we look back on was better than the decade that followed it, and I think that those talk shows. I mean, my joke is, on talk shows when I was a kid walking into this world, we talked. I mean, you didn't have to have a book to sell or a line of cosmetics or a new movie to plug. People were on talk shows because they were interesting talkers. Now it became a much more cynical business, a much more profit-oriented business, and pretty soon it became anything for ratings. And this, I think, the common phrase is dumbing down. But I think, and I think that has proved very, very successful. I think that these talk shows now where people hit you with chairs, and where security guards roam the floor to try to keep bones from being broken. I mean, this is just inexcusably bad. But I think that the people who watch those shows are not unlike the people who used to watch executions of the guillotine. I mean, they are applauding the most horrible, gruesome, ugly stuff. Now that's not the whole story, and it's very easy to say, well, when I was a kid it was better, but I mean, and you can make that argument, but I and I don't mean to be an apologist for the changes, but I think that there are certain things about cable TV which and certain things about broadcast TV that are still okay. The problem is that this television, is the literature of a generation. And back in the olden days when Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best and that kind of clean-cut American stuff was the literature, well, that's what kids grew up on. Before that, we grew up on comic books, and before that, we grew up on radio. But they all had different cultural meanings. And now we've had these awful reality shows as our nation's literature for over a decade.
The sad part is, in my opinion, the word reality doesn't even belong in the same sentence as these shows because they're
totally
far from
totally fraudulent.
Exactly.
You're absolutely right.
Like how many people keep on going on to Maury Povich for a DNA test? Like, my God.
I know. Anything to be on television.
Yeah.
That's the other strange thing. By the way, one of the big changes is that whereas in the olden days, Laurence Olivier was, well, I don't do television, or Marlon Brando, they I want to do television. Now, it seems like people will sell their soul to the devil for 15 minutes of TV time. To be on a show like Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
Yeah.
Which I confess I'm often not. But where they'd be very happy to go on, lose, but just walk, just sashay off with a big smile on their face because for 10 minutes they were on television.
Mind you, back in our day, Morrow, there were only 6, 7 channels at any given time, not hundreds upon hundreds.
Yeah,
exactly. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour, Morrow. Please stand by. XO Nation, our very special guest this hour is Morrow Wilson. We're talking tomorrow about his new book that is out, David Sunshine. Morrow's website is www.davidsunshinethenewnovel.com. That's www.davidsunshinethenewnovel.com. Don't forget the X Chronicles newspaper comes out on November the 27th on its worldwide distribution. And if you'd like to get involved, you can just send an email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. And now the X Chronicles newspaper is available in print, Barnes & Noble, CreateSpace, and Amazon.com. We'll be back on the other side of this news break as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X Zone Radio Show, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network,
X Zone Broadcast Network,
UK High Definition Radio,
Euro High Definition Radio,
and Star Cable. Our toll-free telephone number worldwide is 1-800-610-7035.
Our email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com.
On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com,
and our website,
www.xzoneradiotv.com.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back to that same old place that you laughed about. Well, the names have all changed since you hung around, but those dreams have remained and they've turned around.
Welcome back, everyone. Morrow Wilson is my special guest. We're talking about Morrow's new book entitled David Sunshine. And his website is www.davidssunshine.thenewnovel.com. David, tell us about your late ex-wife, Golden Girl herself, Rue McClanahan.
Well, she, I will, tell you from the point of view of a widower, mm-hmm. and somebody who was a great admirer. I believe that she was the finest comedic actress in the English-speaking world, and I loved to watch her work. I found her to be an extraordinarily charming person. She was also very, very beloved of her public. In fact, that was it wasn't even the peak of her Golden Girl success. It was some years after, when she and I had met. They did an internet survey and found her to be among the 5 most beloved people on earth. I mean, people just loved her. She was smart, she was funny, and she was as kind to. She handled fame as well as anyone I've ever seen. I've spent a lot of years walking down the streets of New York with famous people. I never saw anybody who was more gracious, kinder to fans than was Rue. And a lot of times, it's important to say that a lot of times, when you're faced with your hero, as we've all perhaps been at one time or another, if we've been lucky enough to, you run into Burt Lancaster,
sure.
or William Holden, or whoever it happened to be for whatever era we are, you approach him very stealthily. It's like, oh, excuse me, Mr. Mr. Gable. I don't want to, well, Rue would make you right at ease. You want an autograph? Sure. Would you like to take a picture? Sure. I spent a lot of my time. I mean, I knew when I married her that I was going to be called Mr. McClanahan, and I knew that I was going to have to be told to dive the hell out of the way, because we want to take a picture of her and my wife, like that of thing. And but I was ready for that. I was prepared for that. And Rue was a gal who had been divorced 5 times.
My goodness.
Before I met her, and that's kind of an amazing statistic. And we got married, and in her autobiography, which came out a couple of years before her death, she says in there that our marriage lasted longer than her first 5 put together. So I don't know. Maybe I was doing something right. I don't know. But I one of the things about her that was very important to me was that I not use her to because for any reason. I mean that I not be the spouse who rides her coattails
right.
to acting glory, or I not be the guy who takes over her finances and decides to run her life, and I didn't want to be either of those things, and I would and I arranged not to be. I think, in fact, for various reasons, and they were always very, very important. I think Rue and I only worked together for money on 4 separate occasions, and I think only 3 of those were television. We turned down many, many more shows where people would say, "We want you," meaning her, and we'll throw in a part for your husband. And I would say, on that basis, you make the choice whether you want the show or not, but I'm not going to participate in it. So it was a relationship. I guess you'd say a relationship of equals in a way, because I certainly I certainly loved her madly, but I was not in awe of her in the sense of that she was a celebrity, and I never wanted to use her celebrity. So being married to her was there was a lot of fun involved in that, because she was so charming, she was so outgoing, and she was so funny. In fact, I remember this is a typical Rue story. She was could be absent-minded, not on stage. I mean, not when she was working. When she was working, she was just impossible to stop. But in her personal life, it was a little more how shall I say, casual. And I remember at one point she showed up late for something, and it was not unusual for her to be late. In fact, she always was. But she showed up late for something, and she looked at me and she said, "I bet you were wondering where the hell I was." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, so was I." And she managed to get lost. And, so that was she had a good sense of humor, and I mean, just a marvelous sense of humor. And to have a woman who is funny, and not just funny, but beautiful, and not just funny and beautiful, but a great actress. I mean, you don't find people like that. I mean, that's once in a lifetime.
How close to her on stage character on the Golden Girls was she in real life?
Not.
No way.
I mean, she was she was very down to earth. She was had an awful lot of horse sense, and she good common sense. She was, after all, not unlike the hero of my book. She was a gal who had come out of nowhere. I mean, a little town in Oklahoma, southern Oklahoma, that was that's barely on the map.
Right.
And she had gone on to achieve world recognition. I mean, she's, as I say, one of the 5th most beloved, I think the 5th most beloved person on earth. So that's she was very canny. And also very generous, very open. She was one of the few people I knew who, if you had a script for her, you wanted her to say, you'd be great for my script. You could hand that script to her in a parking lot without ever having introduced yourself, and she would read it.
Wow.
And sometimes she would actually do the project. She was always very, very open that way. She loved, as all great actresses do, she loved to act. So that's so. But as to her being Blanche, she certainly had all the charm of Blanche, and she certainly had all the clothes of Blanche, because that was in her contract. She had her own designer.
Wow.
On Golden Girls to design. She was the only one of the 4 who had her own designer to design her clothes, and she had in her contract that all those clothes went to her, and there would be 5 changes in every episode of Golden Girls. So she ended up with more clothes than than the average Salvation Army office has. It's just amazing. And we had I mean, half our apartment was full of clothes, whatever apartment it was. But she was, you know, she certainly was cheerful. She certainly was up all the time. She was a very sexy person, very flirtatious person, and you know, completely feminine gal.
Fantastic.